There's been a lot going on with UK immigrations recently that is even so hard to keep up. So in the House of Commons Library, they've made some clarifications, answered some frequently asked questions that a lot of people might have. Because trust me, I know that people have questions concerning everything that's going on with UK immigration, settlement, and all of that. You know, when some of those rules will take effect and everything that you want to know. So stay with me. Let's go straight into it. My name is Tochi. You're welcome to my channel. Please like this video, give it a thumbs up as you're watching so YouTube can recommend it to more people, and kindly share it to everyone that needs to hear this. To all my returning subscribers, you guys are amazing. You're welcome back to today's video. If you're yet to subscribe, please click the subscribe button right now. Thank you. This might not be new to some people, I must say, but for some others, you might just be hearing it for the first time. And for some people, you might be getting clarifications and answers to the questions that you might have, okay? So these were the 8 proposals that were published in the 2025 white paper that was published in May. You know, so it was here they talked about shortening the list of jobs for which employers can sponsor a work from overseas for a skilled worker visa. So they also assessed jobs as being medium skilled. RQF levels 3 to 5 would no longer be sponsorable unless Migration Advisory Committee recommends an exemption and the industry demonstrates efforts to recruit domestically. So they talked about all of that, which we all or most people must have heard. And then it also talks about the end of care visa for overseas recruitment, and then allow some time for people in the UK already exploring a levy on English universities' income from international student fees, making it harder for universities to keep their license to sponsor student visas by introducing tougher compliance rules, and reducing the standard length of the graduate visa for international students to stay on and work in the UK for 2 years to 18 months, which they said will take effect from January of 2027. You know, they also introduced the higher English language requirement for skilled worker visa, dependent, for ILR application, and all of that. And then making it easier for people to come to the UK on certain visas aimed at highly skilled migrants, including global talent and high potential. You see these global talents, guys, let's just leave it. I feel like the UK government has a soft spot. Like, they love this visa category so much, you know, but we'll talk about it some other time. So most of those changes can actually be made by amending immigration rules. They do not require an act of parliament except for the levy on student visas. Now, public attention and questions from constituents have focused in particular on the proposal to extend the qualifying period for indefinite leave to remain. You see this one, guys, oh my goodness, there's just been a lot around it, you know, a lot of buzz because it's going to take a lot for it to be changed. So of course there has been no changes in this area yet, but the Home Office has carried out a public consultation which has ended. And then the next question people are asking is, when are the changes coming in? And I'm sure everybody's eager to know when these changes are coming in. So these are the changes that came into force already from that 2025, the ones that have come into effect: the reduction of eligible jobs for skilled worker visa, and then the end of recruitment of social workers from overseas. It came first in July as well. The ones about high potential global talent, it took effect from November 2025. You know, increase of immigration seal charge took effect from December 2025. And then the higher standard of English for new applicants for skilled workers, skilled visa, high potential individual took effect from January 2026. You know, so looking ahead, the ones that we are now expecting, changes to student visa compliance rules for universities could happen in June of 2026, according to Times Higher Education. And a further adjustment to the global talent, adding a dedicated pathway for design industry, all will take effect on the 1st of July 2026. So this was even announced recently. If you had read the statement of changes to immigration rules that was published, I think on the 5th of March, this was stated there that the government was adding a new pathway to the global talent visa, something that you can read up more about it if you're interested. It's all out there on gov.uk. You're going to get more information on that. So it's going to take effect from the 1st of July 2026. Okay, now moving on. Okay, for graduate visas, cutting it down to 18 months, it will come into effect on the 1st of January 2027. Okay, so it's not going to be 2 years anymore. It's now going to be only 18 months, but it's going to be 36 months if you have a PhD. Okay, so it just means that from the 1st of January 2027, once you apply for post-study work visa, you're going to have only 18 months to find a job that can sponsor you, so you can switch to a skilled worker visa, or you carry your bags and leave the UK. So that's what the government is saying. And after that, there's now a higher standard of English language tests. This will be required for indefinite leave to remain on various visa routes from the 26th of March 2027. So if you're going to be applying for indefinite leave to remain and you want to write you want to meet the English language requirements, because it's part of the requirements that people have to meet to get ILR. And government have introduced new ones. They're just making everything more difficult, but we will all survive, right? And the Home Secretary has said that further changes to settlement rules will happen later this year. So the international student levy was announced in the 2025 budget as £925 per student per year of study, starting in August of 2028. So a consultation on the details has also been completed. Now, will migrants have to wait 10 years for indefinite leave to remain, especially those in the UK? So this is another question that people are asking. The policy is more complicated than simply extending the qualifying period from 5 to 10 years. It has two major elements: stricter minimum requirements for being eligible for indefinite leave to remain, which I already said, and then for those who meet the minimum requirements, different qualifying periods depending on individual circumstances. So at this point, or whenever it takes effect, that is if it's going to take effect, it's going to be different qualifying periods for different people, for everybody. That you came into the UK with somebody at the same time, the same month, the same day, the same year, just with this new plan, this new government proposal, does not mean that you get ILR or you get settled at the same time with the person. So everybody will not be treated differently. In fact, they're even saying that the main applicants will be treated differently from the dependents, right? So it just depends on how much you're earning, how much you're contributing to the society, how you meet the new requirements, the new conditions, and if you meet it and all of that. So it's just a whole lot, because they've said that it's going to affect those already in the UK. So people are just asking, how does the government intend to pull this off? I guess we just have to wait and see, right? So the consultations have ended in February and there were over 200,000 responses. So these are the proposed minimum requirements for indefinite leave to remain, as some of you may already know. So not having a criminal conviction, annual earnings above £12,570 for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. So you must be earning this to get considered for ILR in the UK, or an alternative amount of income. There will be exemptions from this requirement for people on maternity leave or with a long-term illness, disability, and the consultation invited views on whether there should be additional exemptions for other groups. So at the end of the day, it still lies on the government, when they make the final call, final decision, More advanced English already, which they've said is going to take effect from next year. So only certain visa routes are affected for now, but the government is continuing to consider whether the B2 standard should be extended more widely. So the proposed qualifying periods for indefinite leave to remain: those who meet the minimum requirements would also need a certain length of lawful residence in the UK instead of this being 5 years as standard or 10 years in some cases, there will be a much wider range of possibilities. So she's saying it has to be earned. They call it earned settlement, you know. So it's not just about how long you've been in the UK, it's about you earning the right to settle in the UK. So the baseline qualifying period for many migrants will be 10 years, but this will be adjusted up or down depending on the person's situation. For example, if you're earning over £125,000, people in higher skilled jobs who earn over £50,000 or work in public sector, healthcare and teaching roles, they will qualify sooner. They will qualify after 5 years. If you're also on a standard family visa or Hong Kong visa, after 5 years. And then people who volunteer in the community would qualify for a reduction of 3 to 5 years, allowing settlement after 5 to 7 years. Then if you've claimed benefits when you're not supposed to, your qualifying period will be extended. You know, so these are all the government is proposing. So if you're also in jobs considered low skilled, they are looking at 15 years rather than 10. For those granted asylum, they're looking at 20 years qualifying period with no reductions possible unless the person takes up work or study. So the consultation also said that accompanying family members of people on work visas would need to qualify for indefinite leave to remain in their own right rather than alongside their sponsor. So they're now changing everything. Like everybody is now standing on their own. You know, you're not going to rely on that of your sponsor anymore, the main applicant as we call it. They're now going to look at everybody as an individual. You know, look at if you meet the requirements, if you're contributing enough, if you're earning the right salary and everything. So it just means that the main applicants might get paid because they meet the requirements, and then the dependent might not get because they don't meet the requirements you get. So that's why we're saying that we don't know how the government wants to pull all of this off, but let's just wait and see. They're also saying that those with indefinite leave to remain would no longer have access to benefits except you become a British citizen. So only British citizens can claim benefits or have access to welfare benefits, social housing and everything. If you're an ILR, no more. So which immigration categories will be affected by the settlement? Most of them, like we already know, you know, even though some people will be exempted, but majority of people would also be affected. Will people already in the UK be affected? That's what the government said. The Home Secretary have said this countless times. This is subject to final decisions following the consultations, which invited views on whether there should be transitional arrangements to exempt some people and everything. So when will the immigration rules be changed? Another question that has been on so many people's mind. So the Home Secretary originally said that they plan to begin making changes in April of 2026. However, on the 5th of March, she said it will be later this year, and reportedly told the Times that it will be in the autumn. So this does not necessarily mean that the immigration rules changes once published will come into force immediately. It could be left until 2027, like the B2 English change, which was written to the immigration rules in March 2026 to come into force about a year later. So guys, I'm sure this has given us clarity so far for some of the questions that some people might have. They've tried to answer, and House of Commons tried to like keep us updated. They try to update us from time to time as much as possible for us to understand what's going on with UK immigrations, everything that's happening with settlements and all of that. So I just always like to come on their website to just check things out because they give us more clarity, you know. So I hope you've also getting more clarity to some of the questions that you might have. For those looking for answers, I hope this helps you as well. So yeah, that is it. I want to know what you guys think about all of this in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.